Good afternoon, everyone. Tom Fritz here for EFG Group as well as the International Futures Group. In case you haven't been paying attention, the only time you see me is when there's fun and games from the USDA. Well, today was one of those days. USDA updates projected production as well as supply-demand data. This is their first field survey of the year. And to make a long story short, the USDA had some major league curveballs for us today. Looking at the corn market, trade was thinking that we'd see a yield around 165, 164.5 bushels to the acre. Trendline yield had been 166.8. The USDA says we're even better than trendline yield at 168.8. Adding to that, they left acres unchanged. So right now they've got a projected crop size of 13.68 billion bushels. Adding to the misery there, world stocks go up even more than what the U.S. stocks would reflect. So we had bigger production out of South America. They continue to raise the corn crop in Brazil, raise the corn crop in Argentina, and believe it or not, raise the corn crop in Mexico. So world stocks go up also. So the bottom line is, the world has plenty of feed corn on hand, and looking at the projected carryout for the U.S., we're at a billion, $1,713,000, and that's just roughly 60 million bushels less than this previous year. So how does the USDA come up with a yield like this? I have no clue. Now, we hear a lot of screaming out of the eastern Midwest about, washed out acres and all that. Well, the USDA left acres unchanged. Why did they leave acres unchanged? Well, the Farm Service Agency will report on planted acres and, more importantly, the acres that went into the different government programs. In this case, we're going to be looking at the prevent planted acres. They will report on this come Monday. So, maybe our acreage will come down a little bit, but for the time being, this is what we have to deal with. What about yield? Well, you hear all the talk about the variability Illinois East. Well, when you do roadside, windshield tours, it looks pretty good. So, if we're going to bring in a lower yield, I think we have to get into the harvest to actually see what's there. So with that in mind, going forward, I think you're going to see a grinding type corn trade as we go back and forth. What is the actual yield? What's going to be the actual acres? But do remember that the rest of the world has plenty of corn, and I'm talking about South America. One of the items that the USDA did do was lower export projections for the U.S., raised export projections for both Argentina and Brazil. So, maybe the crop won't be as big as they're saying right now, but we're also struggling with demand. There was an item out earlier this morning. China is now, if you want to import DDGs, sorghum, barley, tapioca, you're going to have to get a permit to do it. JCI, the Chinese intelligence agency, is suggesting China's DDG imports for the coming year will be just 2.6 million tons versus this previous marketing year of 6.5 million tons. So once again, the world's going to have plenty of feed grain around. Moving into the soybean sector, major curveballs there as well. Now, starting with acres, the USDA did adjust acres primarily from Missouri, Kansas, and Arkansas. They said they were going to do this. So this equated to bringing down planted acres by 800,000, adjusting harvested acres by 900,000. So, okay, for the bulls, they think that's a step in the right direction. Well, here comes the big curveball, and that's yield. The USDA is suggesting that the soybean yield right now is 46.9. That's almost a bushel better than trendline yield, and it's 2.2 bushels to the acre better than what the trade was looking for. So, you look at a projected carryout on new crop of 470 million beans, and the trade was looking for a carryout closer to 300 million beans. Bottom line, beans traded limit down today. Now, granted, they bounced, but it really caught the specs leaning the wrong way. So once again, could we see further acreage adjustments? Yes, we can. As I said, excuse me, Farm Service Agency will be out Monday morning. They'll report on prevent planted acres. And then, you know, similar to corn, we're going to have to get into harvest just to see what we have, given the variability that we hear about from Illinois, Indiana, and parts of Ohio. So to make a long story short, we broke the back of the bean market. Sure, you're going to hear some hooting and hollering about how the USDA is all wrong and all that. But the bottom line is price action doesn't lie. And right now, anybody who's been long beans, they've got a hole in their pocket. So I think going forward, we're going to see pretty much a sideways trade here, but rallies will probably run into a fair amount of liquidation yet to see. And we're just going to have to bide our time as we move through the month of August. Now, beans still have a weather plate to them. We're in a dry spell right now, but come mid-late next week, I'm hearing about better rains being forecasted. So, you know, we may consolidate here, try to retrace some of today's losses, but we'll continue to watch the weather going forward.